All right, so thanks everyone for coming. Welcome to workshop number 7. This is one of the final workshops that we're going to be hosting. And today we're going to be introducing you to Onshape, which is the CAD software that we use for Project Phobos. And it's a really great software because it's really user-friendly and easy to use, and it's all cloud-based. So it's perfect for teamwork. You can really collaborate on the same file at the same time. It's fantastic. So first of all, for those of you who aren't familiar with Onshape, as I said, it's a cloud-based CAD system. So 3D modeling software that you can store all of your documents, all of your models and stuff all online. So you can access it from any device at any time, and you don't need to clog up your computer with gigabytes and gigabytes of memory like a lot of CAD software requires. As I said, multiple users can collaborate on a document at the same time, which is fantastic for Project Phobos. And it's really user-friendly, really simple compared to some of the other CAD software that's out there. Can be really advanced, steep learning curve. But this one, I promise, you'll be able to pick up easily. So the general concept is that we sketch something in 2D first. And once we're happy with the two-dimensional sketch, then we use that to build a 3D model. And we'll go into some examples of how to do that today. We're actually all going to work on a couple of examples together. So this will be a bit more of an interactive workshop, hopefully. And once you've created a 3D part, you can also combine several different 3D parts into what's called an assembly, where you'll be able to see how those parts actually interact, and you can move them around. So you can create, for example, this looks like some sort of engine that rotates. Okay, and you could rotate that crankshaft and that would push that piston in and out and rotate this gear. And it's all customizable in how it moves. So it's really, really cool. And you can also export, if you wanted to do export to DXF to do a laser card or something like that. Or if you wanted to export a file for 3D printing, like a step file or something like that, then you can also export. So it'd be awesome if everyone here could create an Onshape account now. If you don't already have an Onshape account through Project Phobos, then you can get a free trial, which lasts, I think, 30 days. And you can go to this website here. So hopefully you can all see, can you see my screen and you can see Google Chrome right now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So you just go to Get Started. And it's as simple as signing up there and put in some basic information. They'll give you a free 30-day trial. And for those of you who want a longer term subscription to Onshape, you can contact some of the team leads, or maybe Peter from Project Phobos, or maybe Harrison, and someone in there will be able to give you a proper membership for Onshape, okay, for Phobos team members. All right, so I'll give you a couple of minutes, I suppose, to sign up there. Maybe give me a thumbs up or a tick in the chat, just so I know that everyone's going along all right. And then we can move on to a little bit more info. Looks like at least one of you has signed up, which is good. Yep. Okay. So a couple of you have signed up. So I'll just jump right in then. It shouldn't take too long to make an account. All right. So once you've created your account, oh, excuse me, getting a phone call. I'll just mute my phone. Right. Sorry about that. So once you have an account, what you can do is go to the documents homepage, which is this link here. It's just cad.onshape.com/documents. And what we want to do is, well, let's have a look at the documents homepage and see what kind of stuff we have available here. So this is the documents homepage, which is the first page you would typically go to when using Onshape. And at the top here, we have various documents that we've previously opened. You can also group things into folders. And there are various filters that you can apply for which documents you want to display here. You can filter them by who is running the document, like who has access to the document, who created the document, stuff like that. So these are all just ones that I've created. And there are a few more options up here, like over here is the shared with me, which would be useful for those of you working on Project Phobos. You can see here, I've got a folder, Aries 10,000 foot entry. So to access Phobos documents, you'll probably need to go to the shared with me tab. What we want to do first of all is go to our preferences, which is at this top right here. And we want to go to my account. And under preferences, we want to set the units to metric units because sometimes they're imperial units by default. So set your length units to millimeter, angle to degree, mass to kilogram. And there's a couple of instructions on how to do that. Once you've set your units correctly under your profile, that means any new document that you create should be created using millimeters. Once you create a document, you can't change the units. So you need to be careful that you get that right once you create the document. Okay, so let's go back to the Onshape home by clicking on the Onshape logo and create a new document, which is up at the top left. You just go create, document, and I don't know, Aries workshop, whatever you want to call it. All right, so while that loads, so this is what a document looks like, all right? And a document can contain multiple tabs here at the bottom. So you can see here, I've got a tab called Part Studio 1 and another tab called Assembly 1 here. And we could have as many tabs as we wanted down the bottom here. Now, there are various things that you can contain within a single document. It's not just a single 3D model. It can be any number of 3D models. G'day, Anne.
Hi, everyone.
We've just made an account and started our first document. So
oh, awesome.
We haven't done too much yet. Yeah, cool.
Okay, cool.
So this document can contain assemblies, which are combinations of multiple parts. It can also contain any PDFs or other associated information that you might want to upload to this document. So it's not just a single 3D model. It's this whole project with various parts and assemblies and information all in one place. All right, so after we've set the units correctly, we've created our new document. Let's have a look at the different types of tab that you can have. So as I mentioned, we have parts and assemblies. A part studio is a place where you can design a single part, or you can design multiple parts together, which are geometrically related. So maybe you're designing some sort of gearbox that has a lot of gears that are very closely related to each other in terms of the geometry. and they need to be carefully interlocking with each other, it would be a lot easier to design those parts together in one part studio. Okay, so you can design just one part or several parts within a part studio. And the logo for the part studio is this two little rectangles, or two little cubes, which indicates you've got a couple of different parts. A sketch is another different type of geometry, which is just a two-dimensional sketch. And a feature is something that we then apply to a sketch to make it into 3 dimensions. That might be extruding the sketch up into 3D, or it might be adding a fillet or any other type of 3D feature, which we'll get to. And you can see the logo for that sort of looks like you're extruding something from a flat surface. Finally, you've got the logo for assembly, which looks like you've got 2 different pieces locking together. And as I said, that's multiple parts or multiple instances of the same part that all go together into an assembly. So if you have a sort of a bolt that you've designed in a part studio and you want to import 16 instances of that bolt into your assembly, you can do that. Okay, so I think it's important to understand the difference between a part and an assembly once you get started in Onshape, because that'll help you decide the hierarchy of your document later on.
This is working.
Yeah. So
Okay. Crazy.
Oh, this is so good.
Wow, technology. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try and create our first sketch, and I think this slide is particularly useful because it provides you with some shortcut tools that we can use to help us when it comes to sketching and drawing up on Onshape. So I'm just going to open up Onshape. I don't know which one.
The left one.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm just, all right. So as you can see, you've got 3 different planes that you can kind of work off of. And say if, for example, we're particularly interested in sketching something on the front plane, then what we can do to like view it from the front is press N, and that will kind of show the normal, like the view normal to the plane. And we can begin our sketch by clicking this button here, or you could also use Shift S to start. And obviously, when you start sketching, you'd have to kind of provide which plane that you want to sketch off of. So in this case, we're going to sketch from the front plane, and we've got a couple of tools here that we can use to be able to sketch. So Polyline is always a very useful tool where you can create, I don't know, a rectangle, for example. Or you can also use the corner rectangle. Another useful feature that you'd be using a lot of is construction. So this tool over here, which is also the shortcut Q. So if you write Q, then that automatically selects the construction. And what a construction line is that it's not a sketch line per se. It's a line that can be used to define axes and things like that. So it won't appear on your sketch, but it can be used as kind of like a reference line. So say, for example, I want to draw a line here. I can select it, and then I can either click on Q or click on this, and that will create my construction line, and that could be kind of treated like an axis. What other tools were there that they mentioned on that slide? Oops, sorry. Oh, and the dimension tool, also super useful. So this tool over here, if you click the button D, that will auto select as well. And this, obviously, we know how to use the dimension tool. You can set the dimensions like the width and the length and the height and depth or whatever to whatever you want. So 30, for example, and that reduces the width of this. Okay, go back to that slide and go to the next one. 3 very useful 3-dimensional tools is revolution, loft, and sweep. So we all know what an extrusion might be. An extrusion would basically be having a sketch. If I go back to the Onshape, having a sketch, say for example, this rectangle, and then extruding it out in the Z direction. So you give it a 3-dimensional depth, and so you create a rectangular prism out of that. The other tools that we could use, as mentioned here, is the revolution tool. So that basically will spin this sketch plane here around this axis, and then that would create the tool that would create that 3-dimensional shape. The Loft tool is also another useful tool where you kind of define 3 different planes of its face. So here it starts off as a square and then it ends as an ellipse. And so you kind of give that pathway of what its face would look like, and the Loft tool will automatically create that for you. The sweep tool, which we'll be using later in one of the examples that we'll be doing, you define a pathway of where it's going to go and also the face of that 3-dimensional shape. So that will follow the path line and create that little sweep form. Okay. How do I go to the next one? So what we're going to do is we're going to try and work together and create a coffee cup together. We will be using the revolution tool that we just learned about, as well as the sweeping tool to create that handle. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go to our...
Sorry, Anne, I'm just going to switch over the screen share. So it's just sharing Chrome, this Chrome window for that coffee cup.
Okay. All right. Do I like stop control?
Yeah, thanks. 1 second.
But while we do that, how about you guys all go ahead and create a new document and name it coffee cup. And I don't know, give a thumbs up once you've created a document. All right, Cody's done that. Awesome. Okay, cool. All right, let's start. So first of all, I'm just going to try and delete everything. It's not deleting. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with, I've kind of already did the steps before, but I'm going to get out of that sketch and we're going to start with that front plane. And we're going to click on that and view it. So click N to view it, the normal to the plane. And then we're going to create ourselves our first sketch. Okay, so now that we've got our sketch, make sure that you've got front plane as selected. And we're going to start off by drawing the shape of the coffee cup. So I'm just going to draw a horizontal line. And then I'm also going to draw another horizontal line here. So we've got ourselves 3 lines. And then this line will just kind of come out in an angle like that. Cool. Everyone got that? Feedback would be good. All right. Now we're going to create an arc. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this here and I'm going to click on the 3-point arc. And then I'm going to create the arc connecting this here. And then that. Awesome. All right. Does everyone have this shape now? Cool. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use these tools here. These are really, really useful. You can kind of define constraints to your drawings. The first one that we're going to use is going to be the tangent tool. So I'm going to select these two lines and I want this curve to be tangent to this line here. So I'm going to select them and click tangent. And now it automatically made that tangent to each other. Cool. Now that we've kind of got all of that, we're going to now use the dimension tool, which is up here, or you can also select D, and we're going to start defining the dimensions of these. So this one, let me check. That one there is going to be, oops. Okay, that's going to be 90 millimeters. So I'm going to define that as 90. Which makes it massive. And then this one here, we're going to select this point and the point at the bottom. And then we're going to define that to be 40 millimeters. So that's 40. Cool. Everyone got that so far? You can unmute yourselves if you want. Okay. This one here, before we define the length here, we're going to create a construction line up here. So I'm going to create a line, pull it all the way to the top, and then I'm going to select that and then click the Q button, and that creates the construction line. And then from there, we'll use the dimension tools to set this and this. So if I move that out here, I can define what that dimension is. So that's going to be 75. So just to repeat how I did that, all I did was I clicked this and then I clicked the axes. I'm going to do the exact same step as that. So I'm going to click that point here and then, oops, I clicked it twice. That and then that axis. And then if I pull it this way, I'm able to define the length of it from the axes. So that length there is going to be 125. Awesome. And now the last step is to define the height here as well. So I'm going to click this point and this point. And then I'm going to define that to be 100. Oops. Okay. Now that arc is a bit weird, so I'm just going to try and redefine that to see if I could fix that up a bit. So I'm just going to click that and then click that and then move it this way. See if I could make that tangent. And then dimension tools again. There we go. Cool. All right. Now that we've got this done, what we're going to do is we're going to tick it, and that's all defined. Actually, sorry, before we do that, we're going to create an offset. So offset's really, really cool. Not many other CAD programs have this tool, but what we'll do is we're going to select these sides here and the bottom here, and then we're going to click on this offset. And that kind of duplicates that same outline, and you can kind of move it outwards or inwards. In this case, we want inwards, because what we're going to do is we're going to try and create a hollow coffee cup, right? So a part of it will be hollowed out. So here I'm going to click enter and then define that to be 6 millimeters inwards. So as you can see, now we've created an offset. Now, what you'll realize is that over here, this point is not touching that line. So we're going to use our coincidence tool, which is this one here, and then try and connect the two together. Cool. Now we've got ourselves a nice sketch. How's everyone going so far? It's like Nick's this is like Nick's lectures. I was watching him today and I was like, oh my gosh, the response is sad.
Yeah. We'll assume that you're keeping up if we hear nothing.
Awesome. All right. So now that we've got this coffee cup sketch, we're going to tick it and then we're going to use the Revolute tool. So I'm going to click on revolve. And then I'm going to click on the sketch or faces. So I'm going to click on sketch 1. And then the revolve axis will be this axis here, if I could select it. Oops. There we are. And now it's fully rotated and it's made itself a really cool cup. But as you can see, it hasn't been hollowed out yet. We're going to be hollowing that out with the revolve tool again, but going to create a negative of the area. Okay, now that that's all done, I can rename this to be a coffee cup or something. So, oops. So if I click this button up here, I can call that a coffee cup. Body, maybe, just to like identify the parts. All right, so the second thing we're gonna do is we're gonna try and create a handle. So I've just clicked this up here to get that front view, and I don't like looking at the body of this because it's not so useful. I want to look at the sketch that I created. So what I'll do is, do you notice that there are these eyes next to the parts and the sketches? That tells you if it's visible or if it's hidden. So in this case, this is visible and I don't want to see the body, so I'm just going to hide that. And I want to see the sketch, so I'm going to make the sketch visible. All right, and I'm going to create my handle now. So going back to sketch, and I'm going to select the front plane. This is going to be my second sketch that I'll do. So in this case, I'm going to use my line tool, and I'm going to draw a line outwards. Done. And then I'm going to create an arc here, and then just kind of make it go this way. And then I'm also going to create another line here. So this is going to be a coincidence, what's it called? A construction line. So I'm going to click on the construction, and now that's a construction line. I'm going to use the coincidence tool. So just up here, and then I'm going to click on that, and it has been selected with this. So now that middle point is touching the construction line. Are we all good? All right, so selecting these two lines here, I'm going to use the tangent tool. And that makes it tangent to the body. Awesome. Now that that's tangent, I'm going to try and make these points touch the mug. So they're going to be coincident to the edge of that mug. So I'm going to use that coincidence tool again, and I'm going to click on that point and this coffee edge. And the same with this and this coffee edge. So before we use the coincident tool for that edge, we're going to define the length and the distance of these. So I'm going to use the dimension tools again, and I'm going to define this to be, what is this? 1 second, I'm just going to check. 25 millimeters. No, I don't want you touching that. Okay, I've deleted that. Cool. And then this one's going to be 85. So from here to here, 85. Amazing. And then the radius of this is 20. Cool. So now that we've got that, I'm going to use the coincidence tool again and then just try and attach it. Yay! It didn't break. All right. So that's going to be the path of our coffee handle. And now, as you saw with that sweep tool, we're going to create the face or the profile of that handle. And then we're going to use sweep to like create the handle itself. So now that this is all done, does everyone have themselves a coffee cup handle now? I'm going to say yes. We're going to click tick. I'm just going to name this. So this is going to be called handle path, just so that I know what my sketches are. Cool. So now that we've got that, I'm going to select this edge and that, oops, zoom in, that point, holding shift to like select two things at once. And I'm going to create a plane based off of this. So going up here, there's a plane selection up here. So I'm going to click plane. And now I've got those two selected, which is awesome. And I'm going to change this to be a curve point. Cool. And I'm going to tick that, and now you can see that there's a plane that's kind of facing outwards from these two, the point and the line. Select that plane, and I'm going to click N. Oh, okay, let me go back. Thanks, Cody. It's good to see that someone's creating the cup too. I'm going to delete the plane, and I'll just show you how I did that. So how do I even delete my plane? It's all right. So what I did was I clicked on the line of this, the edge of this coffee cup, right? And then the dot over here with shift. So I've selected both of these. And then I clicked plane up here, if you can see it. Once I click that, it's gonna autofill those two things. But what you do need to change is your selection here. So I've selected curve point. Is that all good now, Cody? Awesome. All right, so we're gonna click on that new plane and we're gonna select normal. So we've rotated ourselves. That's all right. We can reorientate ourselves. But that is now facing the plane that we're interested in. So we want to, we know that the edge of where that coffee cup handle was this point. I'm just gonna rotate it this way just so that you know. Oopsies, wrong one. Good thing I rotated it. Okay, so it's this one here, right? So what we'll do is we're going to create a sketch and we're going to create an ellipse at this point. So ellipse is going to be over here. So it's going to be a ellipse. And then that, and define the height of your ellipse. And then we're going to change this to be, oopsies. Oh my goodness.
Can you just Control Z?
Yes. Control Z saves all. Do it again. And then there's that. And then that's going to be 14 and that's going to be 10. All right, I've got myself the profile of the coffee cup. All good now? Does everyone have that ellipse? Yes, all right, awesome. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to rename that because, you know, it's a good convention to do. I'm a messy person, but I've learned that being messy is not good. So it's best to name everything. So that's going to be my handle profile, right? And now we're going to use our sweep tool to put the two things together. We've got our path and we've got our profile here. So I'm going to click on this sweep, and now we're going to define the face. So that's going to be our profile. I'm going to click on handle profile, and then the path is going to be that handle path there. So handle path here. Yay! I'm going to tick, and there we go. It's a handle. Reorientate that, and when I have these two things, you could see that there are two parts. Now, say for example, I want that handle to be a part of the coffee cup because that makes sense, right? The handle is also a part of it. What I can do is click back on that sweep, and instead of having new defining it to be a new part, I could click on the tab add instead. And so that means I'm adding this bit to an existing part. And so after I click add, this tab will highlight, and I'm going to click on this part here. So now when I tick, they're all together, like all part of together. Awesome, we're almost there. So the only last thing is to make the hole in the center, right? So like I mentioned before, we just have to use the Revolute tool, but doing it back, using the negative side of it. So I'm going to click on revolve, I keep calling it Revolute. And instead of creating a new part, I'm going to remove stuff instead. So I've clicked remove, and then the faces or regions that I'd like to remove. Now I can't see it because it's like hidden with this. So I'm going to hide that part, and I'm going to select this region here. And then the revolve axes, the same axes that we've created, and then merge with all and tick. And now when I unhide everything, I've removed that center bit. Awesome. Last things to do is to use our fillet tool. Fillet is one of the most important thing, especially when you're 3D printing. If you're like creating super sharp corners, it's always a good convention to fillet. So here I've selected the two top edges, and I'm going to give it a 2mm fillet. And then at the bottom as well, I'm going to give that bottom bit a fillet. That's going to be 15mm. Done. All right. It looks pretty good, I think. Solid. All right. Last finishing touches is that you can assign materials to your coffee cup, and you can also edit its appearance to make it look pretty. So first of all, I'm going to assign a material to this. And in this case, when I select, I could like use stainless steel or whatever, but maybe we'll use porcelain instead. And I'm going to tick that. And maybe I want my cup to look like a different color. So I'm going to edit its appearance. And say, for example, I want my cup to be green. Tick. Amazing. If you want to like check the properties of your cup, you can use the tools over here. So this here will tell you what the mass is for the cup, which might be very useful when we start catting up our rocket and you want to check its weight and then adjust your open rocket simulation. So I'm going to click on that part, and here it tells me that my cup is around 0.57 kilograms, which I think is what it should be. Too easy. All right, that's the end of the cup. I don't know how to get out.
Super. I'll try and... Okay. I've stolen back control of the computer. So yeah, perfect, Anne. Looks great. Whew. And up next, we're gonna, 0.57 kilos. So looks like we did everything right there for the coffee cup. The next thing we're gonna make is a wheel rim. And I'm gonna blitz through that. There'll be a couple of tips along the way. Feel free to go through the slides for some tips on the coffee cup as well. Anne's put some really nice tips there. But for now, let's create a wheel rim. And you can still see chrome, right?
Yeah, we can only see chrome.
Yeah, that's fine, because I'm going to start on the wheel anyway on here. So I've created a new part studio by pressing that plus to create a new tab. And I right-clicked on this part studio and selected rename and call it wheel rim. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is create a sketch. Just move that out of the way. All right, and we're going to create a sketch on the front plane. And it's going to have 4 concentric circles and some lines. So here we go. Select the front plane. Just press Shift S to create a new sketch, and then press N to go normal to the current sketch. And you can press F to zoom in fully. It will zoom such that the thing you're looking at is fully zoomed into the page. And then you can press P to toggle whether the planes are available, whether the planes are visible. So we don't need the 3 origin planes visible at the moment. So that's why I press P to get rid of those. And what we're going to do is we're going to sketch the basic appearance of our wheel. And at the moment, the detailed accuracy of the sketch doesn't matter when you're first doing your sketch. You can just sort of loosely draw what you kind of want it to look like. So I've done 4 circles centered on the origin there, but the actual size doesn't matter. One thing I'm not sure if we've mentioned yet is that anything that is blue has not been constrained fully, meaning the dimensions of it have not been fully defined and it can still sort of move around. So you can see I can move this circle around. If it's fully defined, it goes to black. So for example, if I dimensioned this to be 80 millimeters, suddenly it goes black because it's centered on the origin and it's got a specified size. So we want to convert our rough sketch, which is blue, to a fully defined sketch, which will be all black. But for now, I just want to add a couple of more features to this sketch. Let me just check where we're going to. Okay, so we go to the second circle. We're just going to draw a couple of lines from the origin to the second circle. All right. So all of these solid lines will actually be used in the geometry of the part. This construction line is purely for reference and won't be used in the physical geometry of the part. So we want to convert that blue sketch into a black sketch that has been fully defined. And we do that by dimensioning. So we're going to have 150, 400, 475, and 500. So let's press D to go to the dimension tool. 150 for that center circle, 400, 475, and 500. Okay, so the circles are now fully defined. We just need to define these lines here, this wedge. What we want to define here is the angle between these 2 lines, and it's really easy to dimension angles in Onshape. You just press the first thing and the second thing, and it will automatically dimension the angle between those 2 lines. So we're going to make that 30 degrees. And the final thing we're going to do is constraint. And I should have done this first. I typically find the best order to do things in is create a rough sketch, then apply your constraints, and then dimension at the end. So the constraint that I want to create here is, where is it? Symmetric. I want to make these two lines symmetric about this construction line. Now, let's say I've forgotten how to use the symmetric tool. What I can do is hover over that tool for a few seconds and it will provide instructions. Okay, so what I want to do here is pre-select a line or linear edge, as in that point there, and then select those two. Okay, and that has created symmetry about that construction line for these two lines for that wedge. Okay, so now we have our sketch fully defined and we can start to convert it into 3D. All right, and the first thing we're going to do is extrude the outer two circles and create a new part, and it will be 150 mil in each direction. So let's just call that main sketch. Sorry, I'll just check the chat. Let me know if you've got any questions. I'll just have the chat open. All right. What we're going to do is accept that sketch and we're going to select the extrude tool. And now we're going to move into the land of 3D. So let's select the faces that we want to extrude. We want to extrude those outer two circles. And an important selection for any three-dimensional tool is whether you're going to create a new part, add to an existing part, remove geometry from an existing part. And there's also this intersect tool, which we won't get into because it's a more complex topic that we don't need right now. But what we want to do is create a new part. So I'm going to select solid and new. Okay, and that's going to create a new extrusion. And I'm going to select symmetric and 150 millimeters. Press enter. Okay, so we've symmetrically extruded from that sketch to the left and to the right. Okay, so that's the first part that we've created. All right, accept that. And if we wanted to, it's good protocol, as Anne said, to rename that part that we created just to wheel. Okay, so we know what exactly we're referring to. Okay, now we're going to create another extrusion, but we're going to create a drafted extrusion, which is an angled extrusion. And it's going to be very similar, but we're going to go to 200 millimeters with a 5-degree draft. So let's see what that looks like. Our sketch has been hidden, so we can click on the eye to show it again. I'm going to select the extrude tool, and I want this center circle to be extruded. Again, we're creating a new part, so we've gone solid new. Again, we're going to be symmetric, and we're going to go to 200 millimeters this time. But then we're going to add a draft, and this is just an angle, and I'll show you by exaggerating that angle. It just creates either an angle outwards or inwards. Okay, so we're going to create a sort of conical inwards shape here, and that's just going to be a 5-degree draft. Okay, so that is the second part, and we're actually going to merge these two parts together later on. All right. Now we're going to create a spoke by, again, extruding. And this time, we're not going to create a new part. We're just going to add to the existing part. All right, so we're going to select the wedges, the sort of the triangular shape, and we're going to extrude that towards the front for 25 millimeters and merge it with the other two parts. So let's do that. Let's select the extrude tool. Select the geometry that we want to extrude. It's a little bit tricky. So I've hidden that part, so it's a bit easier to select that wedge. Press N to go normal to check that I've selected the right geometry. Yep. and solid add. I've added to the existing parts, and I'm going to merge with all, which means merge with all means I'm going to merge all of the parts in this parts list with this current extrusion. So what that's going to do is merge everything all into one part. All right. So now everything has just been merged into that single part. That's why I didn't have to rename that second part. All right. So that's all we need to do for that. Then we're going to draft that feature, which is very similar to what I just explained before, except there's a specific tool for that. So what we're going to do is, okay, I'm going to draft the side faces of this spoke. So select the draft tool. The neutral plane is going to be this front face. And then the entities to draft is going to be the side faces. These are the faces that are going to go on an angle. Okay. So I put a 15-degree draft on that spoke. Awesome. And then we're going to mirror that about the rear face of the spoke. So again, we select the mirror feature tool, which is here. We want to select feature mirror instead of part mirror because we're only mirroring this spoke feature. We're not mirroring the entire part. So select feature mirror. The feature to mirror is this spoke, which I've selected by selecting the extrusion and the draft because those were the two features that we used to create the spoke. The mirror plane is going to be the rear face of the spoke. And there we go. So we've mirrored that spoke about the sketch. All right. Fantastic. Then we can create a fillet about the extrusion and the mirror. All right. 2mm fillet. So fillets this tool. Let's make that 2mm. So those two faces have been filleted. Beautiful. Now we're going to use the circular pattern feature. And I think this is a really powerful feature for CAD because it means you don't have to create the same thing over and over. So we're going to go normal to our sketch and we're going to select over here. You've got this linear pattern tool, but we're going to go down to circular pattern. And we're just going to add to the current part. We can select the axis of rotation, which in this case, we want it to be the y-axis, which is going straight through this wheel. Instead of selecting an actual axis, we can just select this circle here, and that'll select an axis which is normal to that circle. So it'll rotate, when we do the circular pattern, it will rotate around the rim. So I'm going to rotate it to create 5 spokes. Okay. And what I should have shown you is that you can set the rotation angle as well. I just obviously want it to go around 5 times with equal spacing. Okay. Next, we're going to create some bolts into the middle of the wheel. So we're just going to create a new sketch and do a bit of geometry. It'll be a 35 and a 90mm circle. So let's select this circle, press N to go normal to it, and Shift S to create a new sketch. I'm going to create a center point circle. Oh, I'm going to press Q, which will toggle it to be a construction circle because it's not going to actually be part of the geometry. It's just used for reference. Set that to 35. And then I'll press Q again to draw an actual circle, which should be 90. All right. And I want another line going vertically, which is a construction line, which again won't be part of the actual geometry. All right. So we'll accept that sketch. And that sketch is going to allow us to place our bolts. And I should probably rename this sketch to bolt sketch. So we know which sketch we're looking at. I've made this one should have been a construction line. And this one should have been a solid line. So you can click on any part at any time or any circle or line and just press Q, and that will toggle it between construction and non-construction. All right, so now my extrude, I can select this center circle. We'll just go through all, which means it's going to go straight through the wheel, and we'll merge it with all, which means it's going to go straight through this entire wheel. All right, and whoops. Beautiful. So now I've created a hole in the center. Now I can use that construction line to define where I'm going to put my bolts. Okay, so there's actually a hole feature tool, which is located up here. And it allows you to set a bunch of options for very specific bolt sizes. Okay, so what we're going to do is worry about that in a second. I'll just move this point coincident with that bolt circle. Thanks, John. All right, again, I apologize for going over time. Right, we're going to create a hole tool on this particular point. And there we can see we've gone all the way, we've gone counter bore, which creates this little sort of rim. You can also choose countersunk, which creates an angled rim. We're going to go counter bore, straight through, and all the other settings are fine. We don't have to worry about that. That's perfectly good. So we're happy with that. And again, we're going to rotate this around. So press the circular pattern. We're going to feature pattern instead of part pattern, because we only want to pattern this one hole. We're going to select the hole, and the axis of pattern, again, it's going to be around the y-axis. So I'm going to select that circle, which will create a line normal to the circle. Create 5 holes equally spaced around there. Okay, beautiful. You can see it's pretty easy with the tools that Onshape provides to create some fairly complex geometry fairly quickly. All right, and then we're almost done. We just want to do a bit of a fancy extrusion here. This is a good one to follow, I think, because this gives you a little bit more info about details about an extrusion. We're going to extrude just the outer circle from this main sketch. So let's hide for a second that object and show it again. We're going to extrude just that outer circle, all right? And we're going to remove a section of just that outer rim. Okay, so you can see this white arrow here is telling us which way we're extruding. Okay, so we're going to be extruding in 2 different directions. Let's focus on this first direction. We want to extrude up to part, now maybe through all, which is going to extrude all the way through any remaining material in that direction. But then we're going to, oh, maybe I did choose the wrong one. Up to face. Ah, here we are, up to face. We're going to extrude all the way up to a face. And the face that we're going to extrude to is this rear face. Up to this face. All right. And we're going to create, we're going to create an offset distance, which is going to leave us with 20 millimeters that it's going to not extrude. So it's going from the center here, it's extruding all the way up to that rear face of the wheel, but then we're offsetting it back 20 mil. So it leaves just a 20 mil, it leaves just 20 mils of the wheel remaining. Okay, that's a little bit to wrap your head around. To make it even more complicated, we're going to do the same thing in the opposite direction now by selecting second end position. And you'll notice the second end position gives us a second arrow, which is got 2 triangles and is pointing in the opposite direction. Okay. We can double check which direction we're pointing by pressing this change direction button. So we want to make sure that our second extrusion is facing towards the front instead of the back. Again, we're going to extrude up to a face, but this time we're only going to extrude towards the front face. All right, and we're going to offset again by 20 millimeters. So what we said in this instance was we're going to start extruding at the center on this sketch. We're going to remove material all the way up to the front face, and then we're going to move back 20 millimeters to leave only 20 millimeters on either side. So that's quite a complex example of an extrusion, but I think it's a really good one to go through because it gives you a really thorough understanding of the options you have available. All right, and pretty much done. The rest is just some filleting, which I'll skip because we already know how to fillet, but I will show you one last little adjustment to this wheel is we can select the chamfer tool, okay, which is slightly different to a fillet. Fillet is a nice, smooth, circular sort of chopping off an edge to make it nice, smooth, circular, whereas a chamfer is just a hard 45-degree angle that it's chopping that edge. So we're going to chamfer this face, this face, this face, this face. And we'll just set that to how many mil? 8 mil. All right. And that's another way of making your part look a little bit more pretty. So now you can see what the chamfer has done. It's just a hard 45-degree angle. All right. And I think that's enough for the wheel because we have gone over time. But you could adjust the material and adjust the appearance as Anne showed you for the coffee cup. And now I'll go back to the slides. Yeah, cool. So again, check the slides for the tips that we presented to you today. Anne, do you want to?
Yeah, last few things. If you want to learn more, there's a learning center that has a bunch of tutorials and information on how to use so many different features and things that we may not even have touched on yet. So two good ones that would recommend is the Fundamentals CAD and the CAD's Basic. I think we kind of taught you 2 examples from the fundamentals, but there's one about assemblies and putting parts together, which is in fundamentals. I definitely recommend that you try and do. But yeah, go ahead and try and do as many tutorials as you'd like, or, you know, those are good references for you. Next week, we'll be going on with more Onshape, but now we're going to specifically be working on our rocket design. So that's going to be presented by Ben and Hassan, and they will kind of teach you more specifically on creating your nose cone and your fins and all of that stuff. So if you've already done so, be sure to have your open rocket design kind of fleshed out, and then in this workshop we're going to turn that open rocket design into a reality, and we're going to try and CAD that up for you guys. Okay, we'll also see if we can also do it in person. Is that the case, or is that going to be
we will have an in-person workshop coming up, but it won't be next week. It'll be the one after, I think.
Sorry, my bad.
All right, in-person stuff is coming.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.